How's it going, guys? Kyle here with 4Mile Ranch, and today I got a pretty lighthearted video, and it's just me talking about some of my pieces of gear. I get a lot of comments asking me about what I'm running and why I'm running it the way I am, so I just thought I would talk about my Spear LT today. Cool thing is, a majority of what you see here was procured by me on my dime. This isn't some kind of paid review. This is me truly opting to just talk about my setup. My Spear LT is probably one of my most frequently used platforms because of its longevity and reliability. For example, recent Holosun Iris video that I did in a single range session, I put over 600 rounds through it. So I'm putting a lot of wear and tear on barrels, and since the Spear LT is designed to be a quote unquote fighting rifle, good barrel life, that's what kind of appeals to me for the things that I do. That being said, I just wanted to talk to you about how I have this all rigged up, but before I dive any further, quick shout out to the channel sponsors, Warhammer Armaments, who is a huge supporter of the channel right now. They can help you track down a lot of what you see here. So they're a dealer for almost everything. You can get some great deals. I encourage you to reach out to them if you are hunting something in particular down. Optics Planet is also a huge supporter of the channel. You can use discount code 4MRR on anything you see site-wide. It should get you at least 7% off, if not more, depending on promotions they have. And last, but definitely not least, huge shout out to the 4Mile Ranch Patreons that are currently supporting the channel directly. So if you're not aware, I'm getting a lot more involved with the 4Mile Ranch Patreon page, giving you some behind the scenes content, some write-ups before things ever make it to YouTube, and even doing monthly giveaways. So once a month, I'm giving stuff away, depending on which tier you opt to enter or enroll in. And again, thank you guys for the support that you are providing the channel. Couldn't do this without any of those people named, and check the link tree below. I have information on all of that. But back to the Spear LT, you're gonna notice I got two things here. In a nutshell, why do I have both the 16-inch and this 11.5 SBR? I put together a video on why I can't love the Spear LT, where I did accuracy testing. I wanted to test both the 16-inch and the 11.5. And the reason I just can't love this thing is, for one, it's not the most precise platform, so you do need to manage expectations. Like I said in the beginning, it is essentially engineered to be a fighting rifle, meaning really, really rugged and reliable, but it's not an SPR. That's not what it's intended to be. The other thing that makes it hard to love is that it is incredibly heavy. Obviously, when you rig it up with all this gear, it's gonna get heavy, but just inherently, especially as a piston-driven gun, it's front heavy, you add a can to it. Put the stock on your shoulder.
It's really heavy. Okay, we're done.
What do you think of how it shoots, though?
Shoots nice. Don't recommend the weight.
When I'm at the range doing drills for an hour or more with this rig, I mean, my arm gets incredibly sore. It gets tight. It's a monster. I think this one is definitely over 10 pounds, if not pushing 12, as you see it rigged here, which is pretty crazy. And it's not gonna be fun using it long term. But let's get into why I have it rigged the way that I do and kind of justify the amount of stuff I've thrown on here. We'll start from the back. This is the Samson Manufacturing SAS, standing for Sexy Ass Stock. And I gotta hand it to them, although that's a pretty bold name for a product. I agree, this thing is absolutely sexy. It looks great. The flat dark earth paint matches the flat dark earth fairly well on the Spear LT's stock anodizing. But the best thing is that it's incredibly functional, entirely toolless. So both the cheek riser is adjustable for height, as well as the length of pull is adjustable as well. And even with it having the adjustment range that it does, it is fairly solid. There's a little bit of play, but not much at all. And again, like I said, toolless, to where you don't need anything extra with you at the range to make adjustments. It is also a folding stock, so you don't lose any features compared to the OEM. It just drastically improves, mainly with the fact that you can adjust that length of pull to actually be usable. The factory skeletonized version of the Spear LT stocks are really, really short. And if you have medium, even to long arms, it's gonna really feel like you're holding that rifle a little too close. And that was definitely a drawback, even though I think the OEM stock looks pretty good as well. It just simply wasn't long enough or adjustable. So of all the upgrades I've put on this thing, I think the Samson Manufacturing SAS is probably one of the best that I've added to this rig to date. It's also slightly heavier than the factory stock, which makes it a little bit more balanced, trying to put some of that weight more towards the rear again, rather than everything being very front heavy. So take that for what it's worth. So working our way forward, I do have a Next Level Armaments improved MCX charging handle. It's simply just like an oversized charging handle, a little bit easier to get a purchase on compared to the small factory one that's still on the 16-inch upper. I will get to this upper next, but we're gonna stick to the 11.5 for now. It just drastically improved things. Next is gonna be some canted 45-degree MBUS Pro sights, some Magpul steel MBUS Pro sights. Because of all the stuff that I have on this, it's obviously not practical. There's limited rail space to run standard backup sights. For anything that I consider to be a serious use rifle, meaning that if shit hits the fan and I need to grab it and I need to count my life on it, I like to have a primary optic as well as some kind of backup optic that can't go down easily. Obviously you can still break backup sights, but that's gonna be a lot more rare. The laser aiming devices are a tertiary, so I have a lot of ways to aim with this, and it's gonna take a lot for me to lose all three of those to where this is now rendered useless. So the reason I have the 45 degrees is for footprint, but also it works really well when using a magnifier to where this thing can sit flat and I can still see through that window of my optic. Now, speaking of the magnifier, this is an EOTech G45. For those that aren't familiar, that is the 5-power version. So this is personal preference here, but I feel like the 3-power just isn't enough to justify the size and weight of adding a magnifier. Yes, it's better than nothing, but I feel like the 5-power really gives you that much more punch. Plus, it allows you to that much more precisely zero your daytime optic. Now, my magnifier is on a Unity flipped center mount, which works great with in conjunction with the risers, but it also is protected by an HRF Concepts AMC armored magnifier cover, which again, like I said, this is kind of like if I need to count on something or count my life on something, I want as much protection as possible. This thing really does feel like it's gonna protect your magnifier, but the best part is it has built-in turret guards, so you don't bump these exposed EOTech turrets nearly as easily as you would without it. The factory rubber cover leaves them completely exposed, and mainly shielding them from bumps and bangs, which if you're actually using this stuff, you're gonna bump it and you're gonna bang it around quite a bit. Moving our way forward again, I alluded to it, but this is on a Unity riser. So the riser is got a SIG 8T on the top. If you're not aware, the 8T is a tank of an optic. It's definitely not the lightest weight, but it is built very, very resiliently, and it has a number of reticle options, and even better yet, it is fairly good with night vision. It's not a holographic sight, even though it kind of looks like it is, because it is a fully enclosed optic, so you don't get junk collecting in the window there, which means that it has a LED diode that's gonna last tens of thousands of hours, and you don't have to worry about battery life like you would in EOTech, which allows me to just leave it on. Like, this has actually been left on for probably 4 months now, and I'm not worried about it. I'll change it in probably a year from now and just move on with my life. Continuing forward, we're getting into the laser that I currently have. Right now it is the LaserSpeed M6TR. This is kind of their newer optimized version that essentially still has the full power illuminator, but the aiming laser stays at 5 milliwatts when you're in dual high, which makes it a little bit more effective in terms of the ability to aim without excessive target bloom. I do have a Villain Weapon Systems diffuser, which means now I can even diffuse the illuminator and use it for CQB or close quarters kind of shooting. Because the stock illuminator is a fairly tight pattern, you're not gonna be able to fill an entire room. It's gonna be a spotlight in the room still, even with that illuminator as wide as it can get. So this is kind of, this whole platform is intended for being efficient for engagements within 200 yards. That's kind of what I kept in mind. So 5-power optic with the magnifier. I don't plan on taking shots at anything too much further, even though 5X I could, and I have taken this out to 500 yards at my range, no problem. But that's why I went with this M6TR version, because it kind of makes sense to keep it all optimized for close range. Plugged into that M6TR is a Unity Axon, which I find to be pretty ergonomic for me. I like how it has the separate white light and laser control, and I do have a mod light setup here with the Mod Light body and a PLH V2 head, which I find to be kind of the best of both worlds in terms of flood and spot and candela. I do have the Surefire DS00 tail cap. Reason for that is, and what I advocate for anyone who's going to use something in a serious role, is if your switch dies, you still want to have a way to activate that white light. So the DS00 switch, although expensive, does allow you to still activate your light. Even if I were to melt this switch, break it, whatever, I'm not completely out of the fight. Since I'm a right-handed shooter, I have the light mounted on the left-hand side, so I can activate it with my thumb in my normal firing position. Otherwise, I'm gonna be seat clamping and grabbing the top. Now, I do have a 100 Concepts light cap because I do a lot of shooting at night. So when I am shooting at night, I do have that on to help with negligent discharges of white light, which is, you know, reasonably possible with this Unity Axon when you're doing a C-clamp and running through drills and shooting fast. White light ND.
You're dead.
Kind of similar logic, the LaserSpeed M6TR has good enough ergonomics that I can kind of reach forward and hit that firing button. I'm primarily going to be using the Unity Axon, but I can still get this laser up and running if my switch dies. So similar logic to the light. Moving forward to the front end, currently I have a Griffin M4 SDK on this. But like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I'm shooting thousands and thousands of rounds. I'm already starting to chew through this suppressor. So I actually have a Polonium K that's sitting on that rig that I'm testing right now. I'm thinking of swapping to the Reardon Plan B mount for that Polo K to kind of lighten things up, make things less front heavy on this platform. I like the M4 SDK, I think it looks really good. It's not the lightest, apparently not the most durable, unless I just got a lemon, because I'm probably got like 4,500 rounds conservatively through it, and I've already started to really chew into that first baffle. But we're gonna keep running it for just a little longer before swapping hands. The biggest perk to the M4 SDK is it'll go on a standard birdcage, which I currently have on that, even though I have some extra Griffin brakes. But it's got their gate lock mechanism. And right now I have their, I think this is their hammer comp. I'll annotate because I'm probably wrong. But it actually mitigates recoil really, really well. Sometimes it is fun to just take the can off and let this thing thump. I do enjoy, sometimes I almost miss the sound and percussion of unsuppressed shooting, since I do mostly suppressed shooting with this guy. I have not done a whole lot else. Cable management is pretty important to me. Since I kind of have a rat's nest here, I just threw a Ranger band. And then I have some of these B5 handguard little rubber M-LOK slots, which actually stay in place pretty good grip. And when I get things hot, it's not conducting too much of that heat into my hands. And when I'm doing laser testing videos for the channel, I try to do some mag dumps and get things pretty spicy. So that's pretty important to me, to not have a bare aluminum handguard, because it would get very uncomfortable fairly fast. And then I like to just run a hand stop, because again, when I'm C-clamping, it just kind of helps me index. So right there, I got that Axon where I want it. I got both the laser and the white light there. Again, I can shift, use my thumb to hit that white light, or I can kind of go over the top, which I will have to kind of shift a little bit to get to that laser firing button. But again, that's not my primary way to activate it. That's really a backup, which lets me keep it more forward mounted, less illuminator shadow. I've not done anything to the lower other than add an HRF Concepts magwell, which just helps me with those reloads, make them a little bit smoother. Don't have to be as precise trying to insert into that. So that is my 11.5. If I so choose to run something that gets a little bit more velocity, then basically I just pop that off and I throw the 16-inch upper. Currently, we'll start from the back again. I do just have the stock charging handle. I didn't feel like buying an extra one right now. It works, it's just not as quick as this extended one. I do have the same Magpul 45-degree sights. Same logic, I just want a backup if something fails. I do have the SIG Tango 6T LPVO. It's a 1:6, so not a whole lot more punch, admittedly, than what this G45 gets me, but it does get me 1x more. You will notice that I have this laser speed, so this is another M6TR on this. I'm just trying to keep things uniform. But you will notice that it's on the 3 o'clock position. The reason for that is if I'm gonna be shooting this thing at night, night vision is not gonna be my primary optic. I actually have the SIG CV25 thermal clip-on, which pairs really, really well with their LPVO, obviously. So spoiler alert, this is something I'm getting ready to drop a video on. I've been testing it now for almost 3 months. I love it. One of my favorite thermal optics to date, and I've played with a lot of them. So I'll leave it at that. I will have write-ups on my Patreon page in advance of releasing that video for those that are really, really eager to hear more about it. But I leave this rail space clear for that, and having the M6 TR on the side doesn't block the field of view of the thermal clip-on, and that's my logic there. I do have a mod button here going to my laser speed, since there isn't really going to be an easy ergonomic way for me to get to it otherwise. It is mounted with an HRF Concepts Ridge, which makes it easy enough to get to that button, but it kind of protects it more for those accidental or those negligent discharges of your laser, because it protrudes above that laser. So if you were to bump it on something, that HRF Concepts Ridge is going to take that impact rather than the button. On the left-hand side, I have a Surefire Vampire light, once again capped with a 100 Concepts light cap. But the coolest thing about this Surefire Vampire light that I have is actually the mount, and it's a Bobro Engineering quick detach mount for Surefire Scout lights. So these Vampire lights are expensive. Personally, I don't want to spend the money to buy one for every single platform. What I can do is it just ratchets off. The little ratchet set there comes off that easy. And what's crazy is it goes on just as fast, but it is incredibly solid. So really, really good mount. It's although it's not the cheapest out there, it's a heck of a lot cheaper than buying a bunch of Surefire Vampire lights, or will hold you over until you get around to equipping other rigs with lights. So that is my 16-inch upper. On this one I have a hand stop because since it's longer, I actually pull inwards rather than kind of pushing outwards, just preference there. And once again, I have the B5 rubber handguard covers there just to help mitigate some of that heat. So in a nutshell, that is how I am running the Spear LT. Maybe this gave you some ideas. Feel free to criticize in the comments why I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to rigging together Spear LTs, or let me know what you think was a good idea. Honestly, I'd like to hear from you guys. Just curious if you like videos of this format, if you just want to see more of my gear, more of the toys I play with, and some behind the scenes logic of why I have equipped them the way that I have, then leave that in the comments as well. Again, shout out to all the entities supporting the channel: Warhammer Armaments, Optics Planet, and the Formal Ranch Patreons. Can't thank you guys all enough. I also want to thank you guys, if you're still here, for taking the time to watch this video. And as always, guys, have a good one.